Hi guys, welcome to the Red Bear Farm. It's been super hot and very rainy for 2 weeks, so I've been kind of late on recording July garden tour. So it's been a beautiful weather today, so I'm going to show you what's been happening. Please enjoy. At the end of July we typically get all of our garden, pretty much all the vegetables are dying back because it's been just way too hot and it's time to start fall gardening. And I'll show you what we have done. Before we go into the main vegetable garden, I want to show some of the new things. As you can see, this one little lonely daylily is blooming. We actually planted over 200 daylilies, so you'll see them cropping up here and there. Most of them are just a tiny little things right now, but hopefully next year by this time we'll have a beautiful daylily garden here. Right now what you guys see in it here, we have an olive tree. Haven't produced many olives, but this is only a second year for this tree, and you can see a tiny little olives on it. It's kind of interesting. We planted everything perfectly straight, but we get most of the wind from this direction, so every single tree is leaning that way, so we're gonna have to stake and plump everything back up. We have a Turk's cap here. This variety should grow about 6 by 7 feet tall and wide. So eventually we'll create this really nice backdrop and pretty much block the road noises there. Lots of Mexican petunias. Right now it's about 7 o'clock, so it's all the flowers are closed down. And if there's anything I could express over the internet, I wish I can have you guys smell this. This is almond verbena. It's blooming for the 4th or 5th time this year. Have tiny little flowers, but anytime there is a wind, you can smell it all over the yard. It's absolutely amazing smell. Here again we have the Turk's caps with a little bit of underplanting here. Some beautiful blue flowers. This shrub could actually get quite tall. In our old house we had it growing as a vine and get up the wall. Yesterday, today and tomorrow shrub. It's not blooming right now, but it is beautiful with the 3 different colors flowers when it does blooms. Passion wine. This one is a red variety, and it's almost taken over the arch. Now let's go into an actual garden. Let's ignore some of the construction materials still left on the back. Here's our family dog T-Rex enjoying our squashes here. This is actually squash that's been planted for the 3rd time in a year. There's a 3 variety here. Old Tennessee, which is I'm really looking forward to tasting this one. I have never had that one, but it's supposed to be one of the sweetest melons, and you can see there's a little fruit right here already. It's supposed to be a pretty large, about 5 to 7 pound fruit. This is our fall tomatoes. Most of it's been planted from cuttings of our spring tomatoes. With the exception of this first 3, they were planted from seed in I believe in June. It's surprisingly they're really huge already, but there hasn't been really that much fruit on them yet. So I'm hoping it's just the rains that causing it, this excessive growing of fruit. And hopefully we'll get fruit pretty soon. Right here you can see our sweet potatoes taking pretty much over everything. Believe it or not, all of it is growing in a tiny little sliver of land, just like these tomatoes here, which is about 2 feet wide. So this is how far they're taken over. If you haven't seen much of our videos lately, this is because we've been working on a chicken coop over there, and I'll show you a little bit more of it in details. Right here in a row we have Texas lilac or Vitex. It's a beautiful, beautiful shrub that could be grown into a small tree. Beautyberry is probably one of my favorite decorative shrubs. In the fall it will be covered with berries like that, and eventually leaves will turn orange. They're perfectly fine for birds or dogs to eat. They're not very tasty. I believe some of the Native Americans used to use them as a medicinal plant. Frankly, I don't know how to use it, so I've never collected them. We have a little bit more of them here. A friend of mine gave me a tiny little piece of this plant. This is called candle bush or candle tree. I'll have a little picture of it on the screen when it blooms. I cannot wait for it to start blooming. It's absolutely gorgeous. Huge yellow candle-like flowers on it. This has been our little construction site. We're building a chicken coop, and it's about 30 feet long. We have two sections at each end that are almost 7 feet by 7 feet, and 3 sections in the middle. I'm sure once it's done, our chicken's gonna love living here, and so are we, because right now they're living in their temporary little home. So here's our girl in their temporary home. It's way too small for them. I'm sure they'll be happy to move into somewhat. If you can believe it, there's 20 chickens in here. We expected 15 chickens when we ordered them in May, but the hatchery was very generous and sent us 20. Reason we were thinking 15 as the first time chicken owners. We didn't think we're gonna make take everybody from 1-day-old chickens to a full grown. Everybody survived, everybody's happy and healthy, so we have 20 chickens. We are back at our vegetable garden, and this is the pretty much back of it, where we had an experiment with the daikon squashes, daikon radishes. We using them simply just to grow and aerate the soil. As you can see, some of them already going to seed, and lots of them been rotting, which is exactly what we want them to do. We have more sweet potatoes here and some squash. We also had some green beans initially here, but we have such a big bug problem this year that really none of them have really survived, so we will be planting them again in the fall planting. Already have included everything we're going to do. Again, more radishes that are going to seed here. My little experimental cabbage right here, that actually is grown from a little piece of cabbage that we cut it off. Just a store-bought cabbage. Stuck it in the ground, and it's been doing well, producing 3 heads of cabbage, which is pretty impressive considering it's been growing out of the trash. We have our okras here. There are not that much okra on it already. We have a couple of pretty big ones here. We're letting this go to seed. We're still collecting purple okra, which is pretty nice. Very soft, no ridges, really nice okra. And we have planted a new crop of it. There's more squash in here. It's maybe a little hard to pass here through between the squashes and the melons. There's a different melon here. This is called a silver melon. And another one in here. I'm really looking forward to having some of these melons. Right here, this little bitty plants here is the fall okra that we just planted recently. Continue on farther in. Have our new planting here with some basil. We have bell pepper leaf basil. It actually looks like a bell pepper, but it is a basil. Perpetual spinach. A couple of sages. We have grapes in here. This is a really cool grape. It's called Razzmatazz, and it has a very small grapes, but really sweet and really tasty. They almost look like cranberries. Couple of basils. This is an African basil. To be honest, I don't know why it's called African, but it's quite beautiful aromatic bush compared to the traditional one. So we're kind of on the back side of this verbena I was telling you earlier about, an amazing smell. Oh, and we have one other daylily here that opened up today, so that's pretty impressive. This one is called Garden Queen. These are growing from the tiny small root cuttings, so it's going to take about a year before they're fully developed and looking beautiful. My roses are not doing so great this month. It's been really too hot, and frankly I have not been spraying them for anything, just trying to be really organic. They're starting to come back, so hopefully they'll get back to their glory. My raspberry patch, again, this raspberry is only 1 year old, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on, why some of them had parts that are pretty much just dying off, but the new ones coming in, so I have hopes that maybe we will have. Raspberries don't typically grow very well in Texas, so this is not the red raspberry, this is a yellow raspberry, which should do a little bit better. However, it is kind of hard to know when they are ready. As you can see, I dropped one because they are this very interesting, very light color. They taste just like regular raspberries, so they're really good. Our other arch with roses growing on it and pliers. This is where we have blackberries growing. This rose actually has a very small but very fragrant flowers. It's beautiful. As you can see, there's a lot of changes here. There's sunflowers are gone. Tomatoes are gone. Tomatoes been replaced with the new tomatoes for the fall garden. I have a couple of peppers in this bag and some new tomatoes. Usually I plant heirloom tomatoes, but I decided for the fall to try to go with hybrids. So we'll see how that goes. We have been having a big problem with the stink bugs and leaf-footed bugs. So there's a lot of our tomatoes been eaten by them. Another sweet potato vine with some basil at this foot. This is where the sunflowers used to be. We pulled them out and replaced it with the new basils. Eggplants and cucumbers are doing quite well in here. Some of the melons at the very end of this bed, I already pulled them out. It's time for them to go. They're stopped producing, and vines were looking quite sorry, but the cucumbers are doing quite well. You can see them here. I I had a couple of tomatoes here that growing again from the cuttings I took from the others, from our spring crop. Eggplant doing well. There's a lot of dry grass. We've been cutting the grass today, so some of the vines been kind of folded back onto the beds to get the nice cutting under them. It was getting a little bit too unmanageable. And in the process, I found this really giant Armenian cucumber that was buried under all that grass. So that's a one positive thing that we found. More cucumbers on this side. This is a peanuts bed. This used to be a compost bed. They're still burning under it, but the peanuts seems to be doing really, really well here. And on this side we have basil. This is a medicinal basil right here. There's several types of different medicinal basils in here. As you can see, some of them are going to seed, and I'm encouraging them to go to seed and get so we can get more of them. A little bit more basil here. This one was, when it was planted, it was exactly the same size as the other bed, but this one growing much faster, and it even overtaken rosemary here and Cuban oregano, which is also a really beautiful one. We have a purple basil here. We have more basil in this bed. This is Asian Thai basil. We have a purple basil and just a regular big leaf green basil here. Lots of different kinds of mint and lemongrass, and a little bit of Russian red kale. Now this bed is where we had a little bit of everything, really. This is where we have our Armenian cucumber and a melon, and they are both taken over everything. Jerusalem artichoke is also getting huge and out of control. I had to stake that after every rain because it's just so big and heavy. It keeps falling back. You can see our little melons here. This is an Indian melon. It's an extremely sweet, absolutely gorgeous melon. We had quite a bit collected this year. Really impressed. I will be growing it again. As you can see, this Armenian cucumber has overtaken everything here, even our asparagus bed, which is perfectly fine because this year we're not expecting to collect any asparagus. It's still a couple of years away. Here's another melon we have. It is still pretty small. It'll be about twice this size, and there will be a yellow with the white green stripes. And this is the tiniest Armenian cucumbers so far you will see. They typically grow a giant monsters. As you can see right there on the bench, we have another one that got lost in the grass. This bed has not really changed much. Still have rosemary, sage, cornflower, a bit of kale, the tomatoes in the containers here. They are about to be collected and just pretty much cut down because they are, like I said, been hit by these bugs, leaf-footed bugs, and no matter what you do at this point, they just don't taste good. At this point I'm trying to get everything that's been affected out of the garden, give them a little bit of time, and then replace it with the new plants. A couple of basils I'm letting go to seed here as well. Finally ginger decided that it's time for it to grow, so hopefully this is a store-bought ginger. We just plopped it in the ground. It took it a while, but it's finally growing well. This is a really sorry shape for Valentino basil, but if you get a chance to grow Valentino basil, it's an absolutely gorgeous, huge leaves. I've never seen it before until this year, so I'm letting it go to seed so I can collect the seeds. And I've just planted here a little purple basil as well. Oh, kind of double back to this garden, this portion of the garden again, because I was trying to walk around all the mess here. Too comfortable get to this portion here. We have a new tomato plants that are planted here. They also were planted from the cuttings. So I took a lot of cuttings. I'm not really sure which kind are these, but I only took cuttings from everything that I like it. So whatever grows, I'm sure I will enjoy it. We have some new eggplants growing here. So this is the Asian type. I really do like this Asian type eggplants because they're skinny and long. They're very easy to chop. They have very minimal number of seeds. My second round of peppers, which really should be the first round because first round really did not work out, but this second one is finally starting to grow. It also took a while for it. Our soil is very poor in nitrogen, so always really have to watch closely to make sure they all getting what they need. And then this one, my carrots are finally this, where you see the empty spot, that's where you used to have tomatoes. But now tomatoes are gone and it's been raining crazy, and this bed gets a lot of shade. So my carrots are finally growing. As you can see, I've been working here, pull out all of this yellow pear tomatoes, and I'm not collecting any of those yellow tomatoes. They are at the right stage, but like I said, they just haven't been tasting good because of the bugs. So now we're back into the orchard area of our garden. Finally, my onions are doing well. These are right next to the carrots and salads. I've been pulling some of the salads, but these ones are doing quite well, which I'm a little bit surprised by it. I thought at this point they will definitely die off. I'm not really sure what kind it is. It was just out of the mix bag of all kind of varieties, and those are the only two types that survive, plus some little bit of ugly looking arugula right now. A new type of tomato I'm trying out. This is called Heat Master, and it's supposed to love the heat, so we'll see how it does. It is a hybrid, so I don't think I will be able to collect any seeds this year, but if it does well, I will be planting it again next year. A couple of other celebrity tomatoes that I planted, also hybrid F1. Some pepper here as well. This bed is kind of a mix of everything, really. Just everything been planted at a different time, so it doesn't really look very organic, but it is growing. It's growing rosemary, a little bit of onion there. This is a really one and lonely groundnut or peanut. And we have some eggplants here as well, brand new plantains, and brand new tomato plantains as well. This eggplant's been doing quite well. You can see all the little eggplants on it. Thai basil. I really do like this Thai basil, Asian types of basil, because they really don't require as much deadheading, so the seeds are doing fine. It doesn't really kills the plant like the other varieties, like the Italian varieties. We have some sage here, a little bit more onion on this side. Grapes are doing quite well. It will be interesting this year when I need to cut them. I had grapes before and I always unsure on how to prune them properly. And I read an interesting story a couple of days ago saying that pruning grapes is like cutting woman's hair. You're always afraid to cut too much, and it's very easily controlled because nobody wants to lose an extra inch, but with grapes it's better go more than less. So we'll see how that goes. Again, we have a couple of new basils here. This better bush tomato, I probably should pull it out. It has never produced. It's been planted actually early in the spring and it froze down, but I've never pulled it out, so it's kind of been shaded by other tomatoes and now it's been growing. So we'll see. I mean, I don't really need this place urgently for anything else. We'll see how it does. A little bit of carrot and onions. I'm not sure how the carrots got in here, but they are here. The reason you see a big gap between the onions there is because a bunch of them have died on us. I'm not sure if they're gonna come back or not, but at this point, again, I don't need this space right now, so I'm letting them kind of see if they recover. Lemongrass is huge in here. Probably will need to dig it out in the spring and put it somewhere else because it does take quite a bit of real estate here, which I could use for something else. We also have a little bit of new tomatoes in this bed, a new peanuts, and I planted some watermelon here. And this is a combination of pretty much everything, so we'll see how this bed goes. But idea here was to have a watermelon roots inside the flower bed and then have the actual vines go outside of the bed. Also have a little bit of Russian red kales here left from the spring. And this is my last bed in here. As you can see, some of the cucumbers are still doing really well, really strong. I have a couple of melons growing here, and as well as a new watermelon. As you can see right there, one of my melons just dropped today. So it's a really cool idea to grow them on a support like that, because once they actually completely ready to be picked, they just fall down, which is really nice. You don't have to try to figure out is it ready or is it not. But this cucumber's been doing really well, and as you can see, some of it even already coming out of the flower bed and out. And right here, it's actually an interesting story. You can see a squash growing under the two apple trees right there, under the last apple tree. We didn't actually plant that. Our son must have snuck the seeds in when that tree was in the pot, and once we transported here, squash started growing. So I don't have a very good luck with the rest of the squashes this year because they got eaten by squash bugs, and this one's still doing quite well, so I'm hoping that because it is so far away, maybe it will do well. And here's our orchard. I'll move a little bit so you can see it out of the sun. What we did in our orchard is, between the trees, we put a lot of compost and a lot of shredded wood. So lots of that mulch actually came from our power provider. They were cutting trees in the neighborhood, and they dropped 2 truckloads worth of mulch on our driveway. And I actually asked them to drop it, and they were very generous about it. Unfortunately, most of this mulch is kind of the leaves and not really a lot of branches. So I'm letting it sit here. Hopefully it's going to be a couple of more months, and then it'll be nice compost. But you can see I have some radishes growing in them, and I'm letting things grow on it right now to help it decompose all of that. This is the end of the vegetable garden. I have another arch here with ragnon creeper, which has been planted only this year, first about 6 months ago. Has a really beautiful flowers, but once it's completely established, it will be blooming completely covered in flowers. It's very impressive. So you can see this is doing quite well, considering it's at the end of the yard and I'm not really do a lots of watering or maintenance on this. There's a little bit more of the fruit trees on this side. Right here I have a lot of citrus trees. There seems to be doing good. I'm not perfect, so I do have a lots of things still in the pots, and I will plant them, I promise, at some point. I keep promising to them every day. Every day I water them, and so hopefully soon. It has been really hot and it's been very muddy. Right here I have all the citruses, and all of them are Satsuma oranges. I found it last year that is one of the most productive oranges. I had, as you can see, this is only 2 feet tall and it has quite a bit of fruit on it. Last year I had one growing in a pot, and it was probably between 2 and 3 feet tall, but I took about 12 to 15 pounds of Satsuma oranges off of it. And the other thing I found out about Satsuma from a personal experience is that they are not as heavily infected by leaf miner that a lot of oranges may be struggling with. There's a little bit of grape here. As you can see, it's doing pretty well. Here's another one of my Satsumas. Again, for such a small tree, there are pretty nice size tangerines on it. They're all different, but they all Satsuma. It'll be probably November, maybe December when they'll be ready. I have my kiwi vines here. A traditional kiwi, fuzzy kiwi that you see at the grocery store is doing quite well. It's starting to green up and finally seems like it may have been established now, so it's still starting to grow. The other one, hardy kiwi, it's doing better than before. I can't say it's really doing leaps and growth, but it's showing some new promising growth on the branches. Not sure, maybe that's just a rain that we had for 2 weeks that's finally inspiring to grow. But whatever it is, I'll take it as long as it keeps growing. At the end here I have 2 pomegranates. Last year I had them in a pot, and they actually, even in the clay pots, they did quite well. I had 4 or 5 fruit from them which is growing in the pots. So I'm hoping that once they sink in the ground, maybe they'll do a lot better now and produce some for us. Although I think this year is maybe a little bit too late now. So this concludes our garden tour for this month. I hope you enjoy it, and hope to see you soon on our website. And please subscribe. Bye bye. You can see my husband doing a weed control over there. So as you guys can see, we still have a lot of work ahead of us. I hope that brings you enjoyment to see what's going on. and grow our garden with us. Please leave us comments, questions. I'll be happy to answer anything. Please enjoy your summer as my son is raking the dog. Have a wonderful end of summer and enjoy your nicer, cooler days. Thank you and bye-bye.
Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Bye.